dashed hopes for a female president in Nigeria as the only woman candidate withdraws from the February 16th presidential race. The Chinese-built Kenya Standard Gauge Railway is up and running, but is there trouble in the Kenya-China contract deal? And in our Music Makers segment, we'll feature Ghanaian reggae artist Rocky Dawuni. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory and this is Africa 54. Nigerians head to the polls on February the 16th to cast their ballots in the national general elections, but few voters are expecting large numbers of female candidates to win. Now, the share of women in Nigeria's government over the past 3 years has leaped to 6%, and the top female presidential candidate, Obi Ezekwesili, withdrew from the race last week. Timothy Obiezu has more from Abuja.
Nigerian rights activist Obi Ezekwesili was aiming to become the country's first female president, but she pulled out of the race January 23rd to support a coalition against the main parties. Although not a front-runner, Ezekwesili's withdrawal shocked supporters who saw her as a symbol of new hope for gender equality.
In Nigeria, it is difficult to support a woman to that level. So that's where the disappointment comes in. But we believe if the men have failed all this while, it is our mindset that at least having a woman in the system, running the system, we believe that things will have taken a different shape.
Nigeria has 469 lawmakers, but only 6% are women. Cultural and religious factors play a role. Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission also cites how Nigeria differs from other countries.
That Rwanda has a higher percentage, and part of it is probably because of affirmative action, because in their laws and their constitutions they have things like that. We don't have that.
If the president's account
Ezekwesili co-founded the Bring Back Our Girls campaign after Boko Haram terrorists in 2014 abducted hundreds of schoolgirls.
So the moment she declared her interest to be amongst the candidates, for sure, I knew I had to support her. I had to go all the way out.
As a co-creator of the anti-corruption agency Transparency International, Ezekwesili has a clean image, a rare thing in Nigerian politics.
Politics undermines everything that we do in this country, whether it is what citizens do, what businesses do, what the society at large does. It undermines governance.
Nigeria's Election Commission said it was too late for Ezekwesili to withdraw from the presidential race. The decision to keep the activist's name on the ballot could split some of the opposition votes, but it is unlikely to see Ezekwesili remain as the top female candidate for president. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja.
Now, political violence is on the rise in Malawi as the tiny southeastern African nation prepares for elections in May. The victims are mostly opposition party members that may have been beaten by suspected supporters of the ruling Democratic Progress Party. Now, DPP officials deny they're behind the attacks, blaming misguided youth who aim to tarnish the party's image. Malawi's Electoral Commission is threatening to disqualify any candidate using violence. Lamik Messina reports from Blantyre.
Henderson Waya is a member of Malawi's opposition party, the United Transformation Movement. He was driving to a party rally on January 20 when a group of youth attacked.
When they approached us, the one who threatened to burn our car threw a glass bottle at us, which missed me by a whisker but hit the driver's door. I was severely injured by the pieces of glass, which struck in my face.
Waya says the mob declared only the ruling Democratic Progressive Party could hold rallies ahead of May elections. The attack came just days after suspected DPP youth beat UTM lawmaker Boni Kalindo.
I have a broken nose. I had a clot in the head. This time I'm still having some body pains, especially the head. Yes, because I was breathing, as I indicated, breathing from the nose and the mouth.
The ruling DPP denies they are behind the recent attacks, and President Peter Mutharika said political violence will not be tolerated. Spokesman Nicholas Dausi went further. He told VOA the violent mobs were posing as DVP supporters to smear the party's image. Malawi's political analyst Sherif Kaisi says violence is often a last resort for leaders who run out of ideas to win public support.
If you run short of them, you don't have what you can give to the people, you don't have what you can explain to the people about what are you going to do for us to be free from corruption. If you don't have strategies of eradicating corruption, then you result into violence.
The United Nations says if not addressed, Malawi's rising political violence could discourage voting. Malawi's Electoral Commission announced that all the presidential candidates must sign a code of conduct during campaigns.
It focuses on issue-based campaign where people express their ideas and not focusing on castigations or failing youth, failing them to stop other people's rally or any form of violence.
The commission says it will disqualify any candidate whose supporters use violence during Malawi's official campaign period, expected to begin in March. Even if enforced, that's little comfort to opposition members like Iwaya. It also means that Malawi could see weeks of more political violence before candidates need worry about consequences. Lamek Masina for VOA News, Blantyre.
Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir announced Thursday that he was reopening the border with neighboring Eritrea, which has been closed for a year. Political analysts say the president is searching for regional friends and weeks of protests against his 30-year rule. Sudan closed the border in January 2018 after Bashir announced a 6-month state of emergency in the regions of Kassala and North Kordofan to help combat arms and food trafficking. A settlement offered by South African mobile telecoms provider Vodacom to a former employee drew tens of protesters on the streets of Johannesburg Thursday, calling for a better deal. Here is Serena Chaudhry.
These South Africans are protesting against one of the country's biggest mobile telecoms provider. They're calling for a better deal for a former Vodacom employee who was instrumental in creating the company's callback messaging service. It allows Vodacom customers to send a free message to someone to call them when they can't afford to make the call themselves.
I think it's very important, you see, because the poor cannot even, there are some people who cannot even afford airtime. So how are they going to communicate with other people? So the easiest way to actually communicate is actually to send a please call me that will allow the next person who has airtime at that time to actually call you back.
The service is highly popular in South Africa. And these protesters want the man behind it, Nkosana Makate, to get 70 billion rand, or about $5 billion for it. Vodacom was ordered in 2016 by South Africa's top court to pay Makate for his role in creating the service. But the court did not set a specific compensation amount, leaving the two parties to figure it out. Vodacom says the offer it made earlier this month is reasonable. Makate has called the settlement proposal shocking and insulting, but didn't clarify what he would consider to be a reasonable amount.
Now, the U.S. military says it killed 24 militants in an airstrike on Wednesday in the vicinity of Shebele in central Somalia. U.S. Africa Command said in a statement that no civilians were believed to have been killed or injured in the attack in the Hiram region. The airstrike comes less than 2 weeks after the U.S. military launched a strike that killed 52 Islamists who had attacked a Somali military base earlier that day. The Al-Shabaab terrorist group remains a strong presence in parts of southern and central Somalia. The U.S. military has increased airstrikes over the last year in support of a UN-backed government there, which has been fighting against the Al-Shabaab insurgency for years now. A prominent Kenyan newspaper is reporting that top officials may have jeopardized key strategic assets when it signed a 2014 contract deal with China for the country's standard gauge railway. VOA Salim Solomon has the details.
As it winds through Kenya's lush national parks, The Standard Gauge Railway, the country's largest infrastructure project since independence, seems like a symbol of progress. Some experts argue the railway will support Kenya's long-term development.
The Standard Gauge Railway is a real game changer. And now you have a railway where you can get on a train and you can arrive at the other end in 5 hours.
The railway connects Nairobi and Mombasa, Kenya's two largest cities. Before the SGR, it took 10 to 15 hours to drive between the cities on a stretch of poor roads.
That is completely game-changing for people movement, but I think perhaps more importantly for goods movement.
But a new report by the Daily Nation, Kenya's largest independent newspaper, suggests a hidden cost. It claims the multi-billion-dollar loan with China to build the railway could imperil Kenya's sovereignty and assets. Details of the 2014 contract between Kenya and the Export-Import Bank of China emerged in early January. Beijing's infrastructure deals and the structure of its loans are typically kept secret. The Nation report says it obtained a copy of the pact and raised concerns on the scope of assets Kenya must forfeit if it defaults on the loan. The contract also stipulates that Kenya must use Chinese goods, technology, and services in the railway's construction and operation. A confidentiality clause prohibits the Kenyan government from disclosing the terms of the contract without Beijing's expressed written consent. The excerpts provide some of the most tangible evidence to date that Beijing may engage in what critics characterize as debt trap diplomacy, lending designed to force countries into handing over land, minerals, and strategic assets when they default on a loan. The Nation didn't reveal how it acquired the contract nor how it determined its authenticity. But language in the document closely matches contracts VOA reviewed for projects tied to the Belt and Road Initiative, China's trillion-dollar global infrastructure plan in Serbia, Kyrgyzstan, and Guyana. These contracts suggest the terms of the Kenya loan may reflect Beijing's lending practices across Africa and beyond. Since launching in 2017, the SGR has been marred by allegations of corruption, racism, and poor management. Both Kenyan and Chinese officials have faced criminal charges. President Uhuru Kenyatta pushed back against claims that Chinese lending has hurt the country.
My friends, we are ahead of our payment schedule. We are not tied to any country, but we are working together with those who appreciate and understand Kenya's developmental needs, China being one of them. China is a very, very strong supporter of Kenya's development agenda.
He added that Kenya will continue to borrow for development.
Well, VOA multimedia journalist Salim Solomon joins me now to discuss China's deals with African countries. Now, Salim, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
So first, what documents did VOA find as you were pursuing this story?
So you saw the independent newspaper and Kenya revealed only excerpts of the contracts between the Export-Import Bank of China and these recipient countries. So we dug deeper and found similar contracts from Serbia, Kyrgyzstan, and Guyana. So these are contracts on government websites of these governments. The language is the same.
What is significant about these documents?
So the significant thing about this is China and the contracts that it signs with the recipients countries is always shrouded in secrecy. So they do all these opaque agreements with these countries, and now we're having a confirmation of these the rhetoric that has been going on. You know, this debt trap diplomacy that's been critics have been saying, and so this is a tangible evidence to show that these countries have been putting up strategic assets of collateral to secure loans from China.
So, I mean, in other words, it's like you can see the similarity between contract with one particular country and that one with another. It's almost like just changing the names, otherwise the language is the same.
It's exactly what's happening. Yeah. They change, say for instance, if the borrower is Kenya, they would change the name of the country, and then maybe that's how they do all these contracts. But this is at least something tangible that we've seen so far from what has been going on. And also how we could trust the veracity of these documents. It's because it's on the Parliament websites, and so we scraped and searched to make sure that the language and the structure of these contracts are similar.
Yeah, so that's actually what I was going to, how you got to find these things. And is it enough to convince one that actually we can believe this is what perhaps the language is for Kenya or Tanzania or Uganda, for the case, whatever the case might be?
So these securing of assets of these countries that China's making deals with is open to see. We're open for more questions and more reporting required from us. But in terms of documents to see what is being signed and between these countries and China, this is the most concrete evidence to date.
Wow. And you know, you look forward to the years President Kenyatta was talking about, they're ahead. But realistically, there are indications that so many of these countries may not be able to pay in 10 years, 20 years from now. It's
left for the next generation to grapple with when governments are making these, when they're signing contracts that would basically leave next generation in debt. In fact, just a side question here, have we found any evidence to suggest that African countries are kind of coming to the table with certain positions on this contract, or are they just there to receive, accept, and sign? I mean, people who are not as critics, we've seen it, and you see in the beginning of the video, that when they come on the table, they're thinking about, okay, we don't have infrastructure in our country, and China's offering the money. But what is the hidden cost is not what is being discussed. So they come on the table to say, we don't have railways, and China's offering us to pay, but what's the cost?
And where can we sign?
That's it.
Which is really risky. But thank you very much for coming on and for doing that story. It gives a lot of insight into what's going on between China and African countries. Salim. Well, that's multimedia journalist, Voice of America journalist Salim Solomon. Now, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Still ahead on Africa 54, the fallout from a fake university scheme in the U.S. But first, a look at Friday's headlines.
The United States imposed visa restrictions on Ghanaian nationals Thursday, making it more difficult for citizens of the West African country to visit the U.S. In Tanzania, delegates from the East African community gather in Arusha, Tanzania, to attend a summit focused on regional issues. In the Netherlands, prosecutors and defense lawyers argue over the terms of release for former Ivory Coast President Laurent Gbagbo, who was acquitted on atrocities charges at the International Criminal Court last month. In South Africa, a special airlift for thousands of baby flamingos is underway as drought puts their breeding ground in peril. We stay in South Africa, where sculptor Lungelo Gumede creates a wax museum in Durban inspired by the global wax museum company, Madame Tussauds.
The United States imposed visa restrictions on Ghanaian nationals Thursday, making it more difficult for citizens of the West African country to visit America. The Trump administration levied the sanctions, accusing Ghana of not repatriating Ghanaians deported from the U.S. Ghana has failed to live up to its obligations under international law to accept the return of its nationals ordered removed from the United States. Secretary of Homeland Security Kirstjen Nielsen said in a press release the U.S. periodically restricts visas when countries fail to allow citizens removed from the U.S. to be repatriated in their nation of birth. The fallout from a fake university scheme in the U.S. continues to widen, with a federal official confirming to VOA that police have arrested 138 foreign nationals across America, and more arrests may be coming. The scheme, according to a federal indictment unsealed on Wednesday, lured willing students to a school they knew would never grant them a degree, but would allow them to work legally in the United States while technically being enrolled in higher education, potentially committing visa fraud. The government says students allegedly knew that they would not attend any actual classes, earn credits, or make academic progress towards an actual degree. The students' intent was to fraudulently maintain their student visa status and to obtain work authorization under the CPT program. The indictment alleges DHS agents created the bogus University of Farmington outside of Detroit, Michigan in 2015. Since then, more than 600 foreign citizens enrolled in the school. The U.S. government alleges, despite the fact that it had no faculty, no campus, and none of the hallmarks of any legitimate U.S. higher education institution. Well, much of the United States remains in the grip of extreme cold weather. Some locations in the Midwest are experiencing record low temperatures that have forced suspension of some basic services and caused disruption of work and school schedules. Officials are warning citizens they could get a frostbite within minutes. Viewers, Latitza Hawk has more on the frigid forecast.
It is cold and windy in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the temperature has dipped 20 and more degrees Celsius below zero. But the streets are not entirely deserted.
That's pretty freezy. Nothing that I haven't been through before, but, you know, it's all good. It's just part of living in Minnesota. We like it cold up here.
Over the next few days, more than 200 million, or nearly 70% of the continental United States, will continue to see temperatures at or below freezing. About 25 million people in northeastern United States will face temperatures that cause near-instant frostbite.
What this means is that real temperatures, when combined with wind chill, may very well fall to extraordinarily dangerous levels.
The mayor of Indianapolis, Joe Hogsett, and other Midwestern officials have called for caution.
If you have to be outside, bundle up. Be advised that frostbite and hypothermia are at an increased risk.
Health officials warn travelers to be prepared for emergencies.
We always hear these stories about people who get stuck in their cars, and we think it's never going to happen to me. But in the winter, it's definitely a good idea to make sure you have some safety gear in your car, blankets, even these disposable hand warmers that you can tear open work very well.
The governors of Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin have declared states of emergency. Some districts have closed schools and halted mail delivery, trash collection, transportation, and other public services. Maintenance crews are doing their best to respond to emergency calls.
Currently, we have 26 water main breaks in the city of Detroit. Whenever there's extreme temperature changes, hot or cold, the water contracts in the water main, and that causes potential water main breaks.
Meteorologists blame the weather on a breakup of the polar vortex, an area of cold air above the North Pole. A blast of hot air from North Africa pushed some of that cold air across North America, all the way south to Florida. Zlarica Hawk, VOA News, Washington.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. From weightlifting and gym equipment to protein-infused donuts and coffee infused with vitamins, it's all here, all under one roof. Welcome to the Los Angeles Fit Expo, the biggest fitness event on the west coast of the United States. An array of health foods are on offer, from smoothies to protein-infused gummy sweets. One hot trend is ointments and gel peels infused with CBD, a non-psychoactive compound found in hemp. Next up, are you trying to quit smoking? Electronic cigarettes help nearly twice as many people successfully kick the habit than older nicotine gums and patches. That's according to a major new study in the New England Journal of Medicine that provides the strongest evidence yet that vaping can help smokers break their cigarette addiction. Researchers in the UK tracked nearly 900 smokers who were randomly assigned to receive either e-cigarettes or nicotine replacement therapies. After a year, 18% remained tobacco-free, compared with just under 10% of tobacco smokers who switched to a combination of nicotine gum, inhalers, and patches. Well, and finally, an array of business ventures, all working under the same roof. This is a women-centric workspace in the western U.S. city of Seattle called the Riverton. It's part of a growing number of women-only and women-focused workspaces appearing across the United States. While many predate the Me Too movement, their growth has come as workplace harassment has been put on the news agenda. They are also tapping into a desire for women to work in a supportive environment that's different from stereotypical corporate cultures. How many of these spaces are focusing on women is not yet known, but they are expanding. And that's what's trending today. Well, we leave you now this evening with the sounds of Ghanaian reggae artist Rocky Jawumi.